Today we're refinishing the stage at this church because a speaker walked across it, causing thousands of dollars in damage. The speaker was wearing stilettos with a tiny pinpoint heel. There was all these divots all over the floor, and we're not sure if they're even going to come out. So we just finished our first pass with 40 grit paper. We still have two more passes with a 60 and an 80 grit, but you can see that these are pretty darn deep. So we expect these to come out, but we'll see what happens. So moving on, as we're sanding, we noticed a few different areas where there's some significant damage. So something was dropped. And then here, this one, there's like a chip in the wood. So with any job, we have a dust containment system for all of our sanders. But when it's not an active construction site, we like to go the extra mile and cover anything that's intricate, difficult to dust, or might be damaged by little particulates. So we have a grand piano here that we covered. We have the pews on the front 2 rows. And then we also have a pretty nice organ over there that if dust gets inside of it, it'd be really hard to clean. So now we're going to do a stain sample / finish sample. There's some areas of the stage that we aren't refinishing. That's because they have an organ over here and a giant grand piano over there, and they're in pretty darn good condition. So we're going to try out some different finishes and see which one's the closest. So we have our stain samples down, and we tried a few different options to try to match the lower stage, and they weren't quite right once they dried. So we tried out a mix of different stains right there. And then finally, what we did here is 2 coats of Zinsser with a top coat of Green Star to get us a kind of aged amberized color. So now we're ready to sand this off and finish the floor. So next we're moving on to the finish sanding. If you've ever wondered how a hardwood flooring company gets their floor so perfectly flat, it's by using a planetary sander like this. Now what this does is it removes all the scratches from the big machine we used previously, and it gives you a nice smooth finish. So we're gonna go over the floor a few times with this, hitting it with 80 and then 100, vacuum everything up and move on to our finishing. The first coat we're applying is a Zinsser Universal Sealer. That acts like more of a primer before we apply our polyurethane. We're doing 2 coats of Zinsser to match the color of the existing woodwork. So let's get started. So it's the next day after putting the second coat on the floors, and we're ready to buff the floor, vacuum up, and put our final coat down. For that, we're using a Ceramistar by Berrien Springs. This is a really durable water-based finish, and we're using this in a commercial setting because of its cure time. It'll be fully cured in 24 hours, so it'll be ready to use for them tomorrow. So to buff the floors, we're using a 220 screen with a regular floor buffer, and then for the edges, we're using a 220 paper on our little 5-inch sander at a low speed. So the stage is all wrapped up. Let's take a look. This area here, we had hundreds of divots. Now, I don't see a single one. We weren't sure how bad it was gonna be. We went through a normal sanding process, did 3 passes of our big machine, and then our planetary sander, we did 2 passes, and that came out fine. There's also one other corner here that now it kind of just looks like an inclusion or a knot in the wood. That was a really deep indent from something that was dropped on the floor. The biggest challenge we had when refinishing this stage was matching to the wood that we weren't going to be working with. So this has a giant organ on it, the other side has a grand piano, and so this floor was not getting touched. How did we match it? Well, we tested out a bunch of sealers, some stains, and what we went with was 2 coats of Zinsser Universal Seal. followed by 2 coats of Berger Seidler Ceramistar. The great thing about using Ceramistar for this project is that the floor is fully cured after 24 hours. So it's all ready to go. They can move the pulpit back, anything they want. It's not an issue at all. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.